Joe Biden is being blasted today after his final act as president granted preemptive pardons to allies and family members who have not been criminally convicted. Joe Biden issued sweeping pardons to his entire family, as well as Anthony Fauci, Liz Cheney, retired General Mark Milley, and January 6 committee members. The preemptive pardons are not a good look for Joe Biden, his family, and everyone he has pardoned, with many suggesting if you've done nothing wrong, you shouldn't need to be pardoned. Donald Trump used the pardons as another political point-scoring activity to expose the deep state villains.
Why are we helping some of the people? Why are we helping Liz Cheney? I mean, Liz Cheney is a disaster. She's a crying lunatic and crying Adam Kinzinger. He's a super crying. I never saw the guy not crying. He's always crying. I look at him. I remember years ago he was actually on my side. And then one day, you know, when you don't want to kill people in wars, they turn against you. Liz Cheney hated the concept of not going to war with everybody. Let's kill everybody. Let's spend a lot of money on military equipment, you know, where her father works, right? And but what she did was incredible. Think of it. They destroyed and deleted all of that information that went on for almost 2 years against Trump.
Donald Trump Jr. reiterated this on X, saying he doesn't have to accept the pardon. If he did nothing wrong, be a man and turn it down. But you know he won't, because everyone knows he's guilty of so much. US Senator Rand Paul agrees, saying if there was ever any doubt as to who bears responsibility for the COVID pandemic, Biden's pardon of Fauci forever seals the deal. As chairman of the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, I will not rest until the entire truth of the cover-up is exposed. Fauci's pardon will only serve as an accelerant to pierce the veil of deception. Ignoramus. Anthony Fauci will go down in history as the first government scientist to be preemptively pardoned for a crime. The preemptive pardons fly in the face of Biden's own words only days ago.
Also, sir, on pardons, have you ruled out a pardon for yourself or any other additional members of the family?
For myself?
Yes, sir.
What would I pardon myself for?
That's what I'm asking.
No, I have no contemplation of pardoning myself for anything. I didn't do anything wrong.
Mr. President, would you comment on Meta's decision?
Another beneficiary of Biden's pardon was January 6 committee member Adam Kinzinger, who only 2 weeks ago said on live television that he did not want a pardon, as it looks like an admission of guilt.
Biden issue pardons for the January 6 committee members, including yourself?
No, I don't want it. Look, here's the thing.
You don't want it?
No, because the second a pardon is issued, and look, I understand the theory behind it, because Donald Trump has clearly said he's going to go after everybody. And it's not going to be for the January 6th investigation. What they'll do is they'll weaponize other investigations. They'll look into everything and start an investigation that'll end up coming to naught, force people to pay money. This happened to Brad Raffensperger in Georgia, as he was forced to defend himself. But the second you take a pardon, it looks like you're guilty of something. I'm guilty of nothing besides bringing the truth to the American people and in the process embarrassing Donald Trump, because for 187 minutes he sat there and did absolutely nothing and showed how weak and scared he truly was. So no, I don't want it.
And footage has been unearthed showing the hypocrisy of those who have been pardoned, like January 6 committee member Jamie Raskin.
Well, the seeking of pardons is powerful demonstration of the consciousness of guilt, or at least the consciousness that you may be in trouble. And that's what's so shocking about this.
Chuck Schumer was also exposed as a hypocrite after he blasted Donald Trump for potentially issuing preemptive pardons at the end of his last presidency.
The president seems intent on filling each of his remaining days in office with petulance, grievance, self-interest. The president's reportedly asking his staff about whether he can whether he can issue. President's reportedly asking his staff whether he can issue preemptive pardons for himself, his family members, Rudy Giuliani. There's a simple answer: no. No, Mr. President, that would be a gross abuse of the presidential pardon authority.
And the leftist media have also been exposed, with unearthed footage of Joy Reid blasting Donald Trump for preemptive pardons in 2020 while speaking to Adam Schiff, who, ironically, today got a pardon.
Have you ever heard of somebody getting a preemptive pardon who was innocent of all crime? Who's just an innocent person? Have you ever heard of that? Just somebody getting a blanket pardon and they're an innocent person?
But no, I think that it's an effort not only to prospectively pardon people for things they have not yet been charged with and may never be charged with, but also it's the president's own family. It's people that have been covering up for the president in addition to his own family. This is the nature of those the president has surrounded himself with, including his family. And that is, it's been essentially a den of thieves environment. And so I think the president used this as his way of trying to protect those that have protected him.
Sky News host James Morrow has also come out today blasting Biden for the pardons, saying they are a great admission of wrongdoing.
I want to get your thoughts on this final act from President Biden, which is to issue all these pardons. Fauci, Milley, J6, family members. I mean, he's throwing them everywhere.
Okay, so this is, you had that moment in the speech when Donald Trump was there and he had Joe Biden off to his side there and he was talking about this corrupt system while Joe Biden had to just sit there. And boy, that was such an indictment of what Joe Biden, or rather the people handling Joe Biden, had just done. These pardons are like nothing else I've ever seen. 4 years ago, Joe Biden said that that there would be no preemptive pardons for anybody in his family or in his administration or anything like that. For years, Democrats have said that if you accept a pardon, that means you're guilty. And they were saying that in reference to the J6 people who are going to be pardoned possibly at the Capital One Arena just in a few moments' time. But what this is here, this is not just an admission, I think, that there is real stuff to be covered here, whether it is with Fauci and, his use of Chinese labs to subvert gain-of-function research restrictions in the United States, going back to 2014, whether it is about influence corruption and buying of influence by other members of the Biden family, and we know that's been detailed by people like Miranda Devine in her books, our colleague at the New York Post, or, people on the J6 committee who there is evidence tampered with witness statements and things like that to try and create a more damning picture. The real damning thing, though, here's the real damning thing. It is also an admission by the Biden administration that the justice system can be and is weaponized. Because what they're saying there is that we have to protect you from the fact that you can use this justice system against your political enemies, because that is what the Biden administration has been doing for the past 4 years. It's corrupt.
Former White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney agrees, saying the pardon set a terrible precedent moving forward.
But it's going to drive discussion in Washington, D.C. for some time to come. You've not even mentioned yet the precedential value of that. Joe Biden, in the last hour, I think, just pardoned his entire family. You can imagine now that Donald Trump is going to do the same thing. And in traditional Trump fashion, will try and one-up Joe Biden by pardoning the Trump family and everybody else who may have worked for his administration. It's going to set a terrible precedent in terms of building and developing faith in the institution of the federal government with ordinary Americans. But from a legal perspective, it's a fascinating question, because it's not entirely clear that prospective pardons work. The way that we've always worked pardons in this country is that you have to be tried and found guilty in order to be then pardoned. The one exception, and it's a very important exception, is Richard Nixon, who was pardoned proactively by Gerald Ford back in 1973. And the country was so eager, 74, I think, the country was so eager to sort of get that behind it, it didn't challenge it. But I think there may end up being legal challenges to whether or not Joe Biden can do what he did. And keep in mind, interestingly enough, the pardon for Dr. Fauci, for example, begins January of 2014. That's 6 years before COVID, so it's unclear as to why that is the start date. Long story short, I know I'm probably too late for that already. You have not heard the last of these pardons.